Okay, so this is the last Rambam Bekius here that I know of until Sukkot, and so we're going to try to answer the question that we raised last week. Okay, I assume you did not hear. Okay, so the question, there's different ways to ask the question, but the way we asked it this year is that the Rambam starts off in Teshuvah. Let me go here in Teshuvah by saying that all the mitzvahs of the Torah, whether aseh or lo aseh, if you transgress one of them, then when you do teshuvah, you return from your chet, then you're chayav to do vidui, right? And the implication, even though he says it's a mitzvah to do vidui, the implication is that teshuvah is relevant for all mitzvahs, okay? All of taryag, okay? But then in Perek Shavi'i, in Halach Gimel, he says, don't say that teshuvah is only from averos that have an action, like znus, gezel, and geneva. Just like a person needs to do teshuvah from those, so too he needs to analyze his bad Deios that he has and to do teshuvah from them, from anger, from hatred, from jealousy, from competition, from fooling around, from chasing after money, from chasing after kavod, from chasing after other foods and stuff like that. From all these things, he needs to do teshuvah. And then he says these avonos are harsher than the ones that involve action, because when you're sunken in these, it's difficult to separate. And that's why it says Yazav Rasha Arkov Isha Machshavah Lab. So our question was kind of twofold. One is, wouldn't you already know? Okay, well, sorry, back up. One of the question stems from the fact that there is a mitzvah in Taryag called V'halachta b'drachav, and that mitzvah is to get good midos and to get rid of bad midos, or Deios, I mean, right? So just like God is called Rachum, so too you should be Rachum, et cetera, and you should get rid of your extreme Deios and then go in the middle path. So that's one of Taryag. So one question is, since you have to do Teshuvah on all Taryag, and since bad Deios is a violation of one of Taryag, then wouldn't you already know that you have to do Teshuvah from them? And then the second question is, practically speaking, what is the difference between being Mekayim the mitzvah of Halachta b'drachav and being Mekayim this category of Teshuvah from Deios Raos? Okay, so you had an answer last time.
Yeah. Where I said halachta b'drachav is a positive thing, and to do teshuvah you need to first shed a negative and then you can move into the positive. Right,
and I think we also said last time that a person could ostensibly do halachta b'drachav without teshuvah, right? So let's say, for example, you are really let's say you can't control your eating, right? And then you say, oh, well, that's, I want to go on a diet, right? Mm-hmm. So you go on a diet. That doesn't necessarily involve teshuvah and going through the whole process of seeing what the bad causes of the other thing were. You just hear that you want to do this. So you could do one without the other. Yeah. Okay. So that was the approach we took last week. Okay. So Isaac, do you have an approach or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Or at least part of an approach.
Sure.
I think the reason he needs to specify this is that it's not clear when you're being being mevatel, the mitzvah of halachta b'drachav.
Okay.
You would say, oh, maybe I'm maybe I'm a little bit more to one side than the other, but a person wouldn't, it's hard to realize this is an actual violation of this commandment,
Yeah. Okay. So what question are you answering with that? That's definitely a good observation.
That's answering why he needs to specify this.
Okay. Right. What do you say about that? It's difficult to know when you violate this one. Because the problem, just to expand the question here, is okay. Here's a question, okay? When he first starts off, he says, don't say that there's only teshuvah from averos that have an action, right? Then he says, just like you need to do teshuvah on those, you need to do teshuvah on your bad Deios. Does that encompass, aren't there other averos that don't have an action?
There's other averos that are a law of she'in b'maisa,
right?
Because it's not substantive. Actually, the thing that you did is not substantive,
right?
But here, this is something where it's just your state of being.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that is. So what I mentioned last time when Chaim gave his answer, that the answer that we heard from Rebbe was similar. What Isaac's saying now is also similar to what Rebbe said in a different way, which is that your Teshuvah has to do with changing the Gavra himself and undoing flaws in him, as opposed to like with these other Averos, it's actions that you do that are violations of the system. Here it is a unique situation in which having these bad Deios is it happens to be a violation of the system, but also it is a distancing you from God, and Teshuvah involves correcting that. Yeah.
Don't know what to make of this.
Yeah.
There is also the fact that, say, when you were in a state of not having done Avirah and then you've done the Avirah,
yeah,
versus this has been a character trait that you've been living with your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
As far as being shoved from something,
yeah,
returning from it, I think there's what to say of like returning when I wasn't in a state of Avirah, and now I am in a state of Avirah, and now going back to not being in a state of Avirah.
Okay.
When this was constantly what it was the whole time, it is a little weird to say returning, because there's no like what you have gone back.
Okay, so I'll give over this pshat, which I don't know. Okay, I don't know if it's a pshat or a drush, but there's a question that Rabbi Zucker raised on an okay. There's certain resources that just like are lost to time / like on DVDs in my closet. Rabbi Zucker for a while was the head of education at the OU. Okay, and he did a crash course in like Q&As for NTSY advisors, where he gave like 10 to 15 minute shiurim on like all the fundamental areas that like NTSY, like NTSY, what are teenagers like asked, So I remember this from watching those DVDs. We should put them on YouTube, but I got to ask his permission. So he pointed out that you asked the average Jew, what does Teshuvah, the word Teshuvah literally mean? Return, right? So what are you returning to?
Well, I was thinking like God or like the path.
Okay, right. So either it's going to be God, and we have the lot of psukim that say, Shuv Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha, ki kishalta b'avnecha, or it's returning to the good path, right? But if you look through Tanakh, you'll find instances where Teshuvah is used in the opposite way, which is v'shavtem me'acharei Hashem. You have returned away from God, or v'shavtem to avodah zarah. Mm-hmm. So the question now is like, what is the sense of return then? So the answer he gave is he drew a diagram, which when I was trying to do this with a student I was tutoring, I tried drawing on the Zoom whiteboard, and it just was way too labor intensive. So I'm just going to go like this. Okay, picture. Oh, that's true.
The not expo black marker.
Let's use the what?
The not expo black marker or the red one.
The not expo black marker. We're trying to erase this?
Yeah.
Okay. Not expo black marker. So like I shouldn't.
Oh, you should use that one.
You should use the quartet one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So most people have a thing. I don't know if you can. Oh, not quite. Okay. It's good. Is it reversed? I don't even know. Okay. So most people conceive of Teshuvah like this. You start with a Ra, and then you go to the Tov, right? But then once you see from Tanakh that it can go the other way, then you can't use that model anymore. So the idea that Rabbi Zucker gave is you have Bechira. And Teshuvah is either a return, from the Ra to a point of Bechira, and then using your Bechira to be Boker B'Tov, or starting from the Tov and then going back to Bechira and then being Boker B'Ra. Thank you. Okay. So
Teshuvah is returning to Bechira?
To Bechira, yeah, which is why, not symbolically, but why the middle of Hilchos Teshuvah is Bechira, not because it's in the middle, but like, but because it's central, not symbolically, to the process of Teshuvah, and why did I bring this up? Because what did you say?
I was working with Shav being returned.
Right. Oh, right. So you're saying that if you were saying that if you already had this bad day your whole life, then it's weird to use the term Teshuvah for correcting it, yes. Right? And I'm trying to show how that's not necessarily the case. Yeah. So that's a good idea. Okay. But here's so I'll give you my approach to this question here. So what is the difference? So I'm not going to answer the question of wouldn't you already know that you have to get rid of your bad Deios from the fact that the halakha b'drachav is a mitzvah? I'm going to answer the question of what is the difference between the halakha b'drachav and Teshuvah on bad Deios. Okay, so the difference lies in what the halakha b'drachav is. Okay, the mitzvah, practically speaking, the halakha b'drachav is to get good midos, right? But what's like the tom or the objective of that mitzvah. Yeah, the halakha b'drachav is this mitzvah to just as God is called merciful, so too you should be merciful. Just as he's called gracious, etc. You should emulate all of his attributes, quote unquote, right? So the question is, what's the purpose of that mitzvah? And if you think about it, it's a little weird. Why doesn't the Torah just have a mitzvah of like vasisa tov hayashar tov, right? Just do good stuff. Why does it put it in terms of emulating God? Yeah.
To be not working and living in your framework, but working in you would call God's framework.
Yeah.
And then from there you can have the greater knowledge of things outside of yourself.
Okay, good. That's definitely a big part of it. Yeah.
I was gonna say something similar, like with your framework, it's subjective.
Correct.
Out of that from subjective value.
Okay, that's good. All right. So the purpose is that, and the Rambam says this at the end of, let me go to my Machshavah cheat sheet. For those who listens to my Yoga Midos Harachamim shir, which you should definitely do before Yom HaKippur. I'm telling you, like, if there's one thing you listen to, if all the Torah I've ever given in this yeshiva, listen to that before Yom Kippurim, because it will make your Yugam Midos, like your kapara, will be enhanced on that. Whatever kapara is, hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. But the Rambam ends off by saying, and so once you listen to it, I can print you out the cheat sheet. But I'm not going to give you a cheat sheet unless you listen to the share, because that would be cheating. In the very end of the Mora Nevuchim, he says, thus the prophet thus in conclusion says, for in these is my desire, the word of Hashem, i.e., so this is, again, this is the pasuk. Let me show you the pasuk. Yeah, I know I quote this pasuk a lot. Two pasukim. Yirmiyahu 9:22. Got to get t-shirts made. Yirmiyahu 9. Then you couldn't go into the bathroom. What? Okay. Kolmar Hashem. Right? This is the only thing you could praise yourself for. Haskil v'yado osi, comprehending and knowing me, ki ani Hashem, because I am Hashem, osem chesed mishpat u'tzedakah ba'aretz, who does kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. Ki be'elech hafastinu Hashem, because in these is my desire, says Hashem. So the Rambam at the end of the Mora Nevuchim says, and I quoted this on my Sunday share, my object in saying this is that you shall practice chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah on earth. In the similar manner, we have shown in 154, which I brought here, which we don't have time to read, that the purpose of the enumeration of God's 13 attributes is the lesson that we should acquire similar attributes and act accordingly. The object of the above passage is therefore to declare that the perfection in which man can truly glory is attained by him when he has acquired, as far as this is possible for man, the knowledge of God, the knowledge of his hashgacha, and the manner in which it influences his creatures in their production and continued existence. Having acquired this knowledge, he will then be determined always to seek chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah, and thus to imitate the ways of God. Okay, so the halakha b'drachav is essentially when you pursue Yedias Hashem, see how he operates and conducts the universe, and you become a vehicle of implementing that in areas where it is lacking, because you have free will and you have an intellect and you can apprehend that. So it's way beyond Teshuvah. Okay, this is a similar move to what you're making, but I'm explaining it based on the contents of the mitzvah. That Teshuvah is correcting flaws, okay, and perfecting yourself and removing distortions. But Deios goes way beyond that, which is emulating God and is the ultimate result of your knowledge of God, that you should be seeking knowledge of God in a way that leads you to emulate his actions. And so you could look at it as a Venn diagram that if you do the process of Teshuvah, that's going to correct certain Deios and give you good Deios, which will be in line with the mitzvah of halakha b'drachav. Or if you do the halakha b'drachav, that's going to involve correcting certain bad midos. But the halakha b'drachav takes you further into being like the perfected human being of like fully, like in other words, fully striving to implement God's will through your actions and through who you becoming an instrument of the Ratzon Hashem, in the world. So it's a different, the nature of the process is different, even though there's overlap with Hilchos Deios. And this was my shot. There was a question that was raised of I forgot if I raised this earlier in this year. Why does the Rambam invent this word Deios? Okay, because what's the normal term that normal people use for midos, right? And midos means measures, right? So when we went through, I didn't listen to this year yet, but when we went through this in 2021, in April, the question, we had this question, why does the Rambam call them Deios? And we had two theories. Okay, one theory was that the Rambam is acknowledging like the cognitive behavioral dimension of Deios, that bad like character traits stem from a distorted way of viewing reality. So like, let's say you have this characteristic of like, greed or whatever, or covetousness, there it's not just a psychological thing. It is stemming from this irrational premise that I am more deserving of the goods of this world than you are, or like you are somehow like less than me, or let's say anger. If you're struggling with anger, anger occurs when you demand that reality go in line with your desires. So you have this like megalomaniacal like view of yourself in reality. So that was one theory of Deios, and if I'm articulating it correctly, that's Rabbi Fader's preferred explanation. Okay, I'm just gonna say mine just to contrast it. My understanding is that Deios, the reason why the Rambam calls them Deios is because of this exact idea that if you just call them midos, so then you have ethical perfection and you have perfection of intellect, and they're two separate realms. Maybe you'll say that perfection of midos is like, instrumental to perfection of intellect, but what the Rambam is doing is by rebranding perfection of midos as Deios, he's showing you that Judaism's whole approach to Deios revolves around Yedias Hashem, that the only way we have knowledge of God is through his actions, which are Deios, right? Rachum, Chanun, Erech Baim, Rav Chesed Emes, and the ultimate result of our knowledge of God should be cultivating Deios. So he rebrands them as Deios to make them to show how they're part and parcel of the package of Judaism's primary value, which is Yedias Hashem. That the only way to know God is through his Deios, through his actions, and the result of your knowledge of God is emulating them. So that's my preferred explanation of Deios. Yeah, Yehoshua?
Can you pause the recording for this question?
Yes, I can. Yeah, go ahead.
So just one more point about Deios that we said in 2021 when we did it, is that it's not Deios, like the Deios that you should cultivate it's not just like in the middle between two extremes. The Rambam describes it as far from each extreme,
right?
Which we said was that
equidistant from the two extremes,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but it's not just that it's equidistant, it's that you aren't being governed by either extreme.
Right. Yeah, that's the essence of Deios, and that's why you're called a chacham if you're in the middle, because you have complete emotional fluidity, which means you're not pulled in either direction by any of your psychological characteristics or by any aspect of your personality. You do what you're able to do whatever chachma demands. And then the question is, why would you ever? That's not the highest level. The highest level is a chassid. Yeah, is inclined one way to the other side, and that's the whole other question. Let's learn all Deios again. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us, Isaac. And
Thank you.
Yeah.